The voice of Clannad, Moya Brennan, now tells their story in Closer to Your Heart.
A lot of people have called our music, haunting and ethereal and, mystery and magical and everything, you name it. For me, it's earthy. I really mean it when I know that the sound that we create comes from having the fortune of being brought up in such a beautiful area. Donegal is, if you look at it on a map, it's quite a long way away. It's the forgotten county in Ireland. My father had a show band with my grandmother playing the drums, my grandfather playing the keyboards, my aunt on accordion, uncle on trumpet. My father was the saxophone, clarinet. So when we were growing up, it was sort of in the 50s and the early 60s and that, the sheet music of whatever the popular music of that time was coming into the house. So if you can imagine, speaking Gaelic and learning all the sort of, the old traditional songs from my grandparents and the stories and the folklore and everything, and this kind of music with guitars around the house and everything, there was a right fusion. And I think that that's very, very important for people to understand about Clannad, because they always assume that, with us sometimes what they call us doing pop songs or folk contemporary rock songs, that we're trying to get into a mainstream thing rather than looking upon it as something that was really in our background. Where we came from as well was important, because Donegal is a very rugged, beautiful area. There's lots of space.
Way up there in the Poison Glen, the sun's going down on the misty mountain, and I'm watching and wondering, feeling something from long ago. Haunted echo that surrounds the glen, the heather creeping through the burned out rooms, and I'm watching and wondering, feeling spirits of long ago. Who in the valley shed the poison tear? No one knows. No legend of a mythical hero, and I'm watching and wondering, feeling something from long ago.
My father, after his show band days kind of folded, the only sort of trade that he really had was music. He did it since he was 12 years of age or something. And so he thought, rather than ending up playing cabaret and weddings and things like this, he thought that he would buy himself a tavern. And it was strange for him because he's an Irishman that never drank nor smoked in his life. So in that way it was quite different. But really he wanted just to buy a tavern because of his stage. He wanted to perform in it. I think I was about 14 or 15. And when we'd come home from school and that, he would kind of say to us, go up and relieve me for half an hour or 40 minutes or whatever. It did extend to 40 minutes. There's guitars there, you know how to play, you know, get up and sing. So we used to do that. We used to love it. The five of us that got together was my twin uncles, Padraig and Noel Dugan, who are my mother's brothers, and my brother Kieran and my brother Paul. And we used to get up and we used to do all sorts of cover versions, but particularly anything with harmonies. I mean, we loved the Beach Boys, which is like, I mean, their harmonies were so brilliant. They really were, if you listen back to some of their older records as well. And even though it wasn't the in thing, even because the Beatles were there and everything, but even the Beatles got some of their harmonies from that. It was just absolutely amazing counterpoint harmonies and things.
Warag ve gachul duali kuche gagan brua martara.
Hokio, Yuraba, Yali, Hokio. Yamonya Grili, go Buelis Nag, Mamolo, Ayara. Hokio, Yuraba, Yali, Hokio.
Yamonya Grili, go Aris Nag, Mamora, Ayara.
Hokio, Yuraba, Yali, Hokio.
For us as a family, it was probably very different to the normal kind of families around that area, because where we grew up, it was one of the pockets around Ireland that still spoke Irish, the Gaelic, the Gaeltarts. So we were very, very fortunate in that way that we grew up. That was our first language and still is. But on the other hand, the first time we did a Gaelic song, the local people didn't clap. It was like, oh, what are they doing? You know, this isn't the thing to be doing, you know. It's, I don't know, it's I think, Gaelic at that time, and you're talking about, you know, 20 odd years ago, more, 25 years ago, it was certainly not the in thing to be doing, singing Gaelic. It was like, because of the places that Gaelic was spoken, it was looked upon as the kind of the poor areas nearly of Ireland. So in a way, I suppose, you know, you could say it was the poor man's kind of language at that time, and you were letting yourself down by saying that you even spoke it, or not alone sang it, you know. But it was a challenge to us. We were like that. We have been like that all down our years. But the tourists and the strangers in the pub loved it.
Shoot the boy, you found clock, Chisha, Fossi, Molana. Hokio, Yuraba, Yali, Hokio.
Hache uren buchen Tyler Siki Juna Maragahi
Hemma hoki o yuraba horen yali Hemma hoki o Anel malanan saga yeri hachelia geshti harsha Hemma hoki o yuraba horen yali Hemma hoki o.
Well, I distinctly remember winning a Letterkenny Folk Festival in County Donegal, and it was incredible because our name was put in by a local sergeant, would you believe, that heard us singing in my father's pub. And that's when we decided to call ourselves Clannad. I remember watching the mail van coming, over the road, and we were filling in the form. We said, well, what do we call ourselves? And somebody said, Clan As Door, which means family from door. I said, oh, that's a mouthful. And then, Padraig, one of the uncles, said, take the A and take the D and stick it onto the end. That'll be fine. And it's stuck ever since. That was like, a 2-minute, decision. We had 8 minutes to do something. We were the only ones that sang a Gaelic song. And we did an instrumental as well with the harp and with the bongo effect and everything. And we were completely knocked out. I mean, we knew we had something, but we really honestly didn't think that it was, that somebody would see it as, even at that early stage, as being special. To win that I'll always remember the feeling that my heart just beating so fast. It was quite amazing. We started going around basically with the tape recorder, half pack of Guinness, and ourselves, and we'd just wander after these people that we knew had certain songs. We'd sit with them for hours, and they'd tell us some amazing stories and where they thought it might have come from. Now, some of these stories would have been lost, so we actually resurrected some of these songs. Some of these old people have died since as well. But we didn't kind of realise what we were doing. We really, really enjoyed it. We started to get really interested in the whole beauty and the wealth of these gorgeous, gorgeous songs. The melodies were absolutely amazing. The way they'd write some of the words are very cryptic, very funny, very humorous, tragic and humorous at the same time. This amazing ability, as you know, Irish writers do, have this great way of sort of having a tragedy with a sense of humour in it, a lot of hope. And we love this.
As I went a-walking in the North Country, down by Kirby Stevens I happened for to be. As I was a-walking up and down the street, a pretty little by a broom I chanced for to meet, for she was right, I was tight, everybody has their way. It was the Lisham by a broom that led me astray. She kindly then invited me to go a little way. yes was the answer to her. I did say that was me with me music walking down the street, and her with the tambourine was beating hand and feet. For she was right, I was tight, everybody has their way. It was the Lisham by a broom that led me astray. Straight way out for Kendrelltown we steered, her and I, over yon green mountains, the weather being dry. We each had a bottle filled up to the top, and whenever we were getting dry, we took a little drop. For she was right, I was tight, everybody has their way. It was the Lisham by a broom that led me astray. The night was coming on, and good lodgings we did find, eatables of all kind and plenty of good wine, good bed and blankets just for we two. And I rolled her in me arms, me boys, and wouldn't you do too? For she was right, I was tight, everybody has their way. It was the Lisham by a broom that led me astray. Early the next morning we arose to go our way. I called unto the landlord to see what was to pay. 14 and 6pence just for you two. 4 crowns upon the table, my darling, then she threw. For she was right, I was tight, everybody has their way. It was the Lisham by a broom that led me astray. The reason that we parted I now shall let you hear. She started off for Germany right early the next year, but me being unwilling for to cross the raging sea, here's a health unto my bonny lass wherever she may be. For she was right, I was tight, everybody has their way. It was the Lisham by a broom that led me astray.
The very first kind of song that we wrote was Harry's Game. And it was like we were asked to do it after Gerard Seymour and this other guy from the musical director from Yorkshire TV heard on Fuam as what we did to a Scottish Gaelic song called Worags na Hora Yali. It was the first time as well that we started to include keyboards in our songs. We were in the studio in Dublin and we had the Scottish Gaelic song and there was a Prophet 5 there. And Kieran and Paul started to mess around with it and were fascinated with it. And we ended up doing, you know, this vocal with a Prophet 5. But when we did Harry's Game, we went off to our usual touring in Europe, not thinking that, we had done something special. I mean, we loved the song ourselves. But when we were called back to do Top of the Pops, and people were saying, where did you get the sound? And we really had to stand back ourselves to kind of hear what we had developed. We knew that it was something very natural that had happened. And the other thing about Harry's Game as well, it is nice for people, maybe the first time to get to know Clannad, to get to know us through Harry's Game, is a good representative of the band. I mean, it does represent a very strong element of Clannad. Also, the Ivor Novello Award for Harry's Game was a very huge highlight, because it's to win something like that for a Gaelic song is huge in the music world. People have asked me about, do I get fed up, with Harry's Game or being attached to it or singing it or anything. I don't, actually. I think it's it's one of the songs that I'm still very fond of and I love. And it is quite incredible that now that we've actually broken America with it. We were approached by Volkswagen. They were sort of looking at 3 potential pieces of music. One of them happened to be Harry's Game, and they asked us, would we mind? And we said, you're not changing anything, it's 11 years old, and no, certainly not. And I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that would never have their music on commercials, but, when you're a band that don't get played on radio, you don't get to the general public, and commercials is used as a way of getting to the general public now as well. Then this kind of extraordinary thing happened with people ringing up the 0800 number for information about Volkswagen, asking about who the music was, when it was coming back on again, and everything. And I was just created this kind of just interest that completely boiled us over. And I mean, it was great that it was available on Annam, and to the extent now that an old album like Annam has sold 500,000 albums, and for us in America that was just incredible. Making a lot of new friends, particularly with Robin of Sherwood. We made a lot of young new friends. The producer of Robin of Sherwood, Paul Knight, loved Harry's Game. He loved the album that it came from, Magical Ring. So we weren't terribly sure because it's an English folk hero. We're an Irish band. It was the first album we didn't have a Gaelic song on. You couldn't, because Robin didn't have any Gaelic. But when we met Paul, we went on location. We met the actors and actresses and everything, and found that it was a kind of a very contemporary Robin Hood. It was very much, and it was very well researched. And we definitely got interested. Our background is very much soaked in folk and folklore, and bringing it to a contemporary style. And I thought, we really thought that it married very, very well. Winning the British Academy Awards with Robin of Sherwood was because you don't know to that actual minute when they open the envelope that you've won or not, So it can be it's quite quite a surprise. was a series of collaborations, little collaborations here and there, with an album called Serious, which was highly criticised. And it's hard for people to realise that we really wanted to do this album. First of all, people got very confused when they saw all the names at the back, and that it was mixed in Los Angeles, and they thought it was made in Los Angeles. We actually brought the producer, the Greg Ladani and Russ Kunkel, over to a residential studio in Wales, and they had never been to a residential studio before. And we actually like working in residential studios because it's kind of more of a country atmosphere to it. But we really wanted to work with an American producer. It was yet another step for us to learning about different ways in music, learning different things, and we were curious as to what an American producer would do with our sound. It did get a bit maybe cleaned up when it got to Los Angeles in the mix and everything. But at the same time, there's moments in it and there's songs in it that I absolutely adore. We really had to stop people getting on the album. It was crazy. It was one of these albums that people were sort of, coming in and sort of, exploring us. But it was good fun, and it was really wonderful. So in that way, we have experimented an awful lot, and especially in that album, as I said, it was really criticised down the line. But I mean, we wouldn't have changed it if we hadn't made that album. We still might have wanted to work with an American producer now. So that's the way we see it, as a progression.
When many roads lead to nowhere, and all the places look the same,
The Paul Young thing, that was another wonderful collaboration. They were doing this movie called Switch, and they suggested, would I do a version of Both Sides Now? And it was just going to be just somewhere in the movie. And then Kieran and I and the boys, we did a version of it and sent it to them, a demo. And they loved it, and they wanted it as the theme then. And we said, okay. And they said, well, is there any chance of getting a male vocal or something? And they were suggesting some very big singers, and I was going, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable. So I was, there in Dublin one night, and myself and a friend, we knew that some of our crew that work with us on tour were out on the road with Paul Young. So we went down. I just love his voice. I think he's got great passion in his voice, I really do. I've always been a big fan of his. And I just said, would you be into, doing this? I'm just doing the song. And he just said, yeah, why not? And we were really pleased with it. I mean, I think that it's a great version of that song, Both Sides Now.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel, as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all.
Aina joined us for, I think, nearly 2 years after she left school. And so she found it a little bit being lost, and, the 5 members had been very, very tight at that stage. We tried to sort of, develop it as much as we could, but it was difficult for her, and I can understand her very much. And also she was very much classically trained, and she wanted to experiment, obviously, and do her own thing. And there was absolutely no qualms about it at all. And, for people to make out that there was a big sort of separation or a big thing. But, I mean, it was very difficult for her. I think where the misunderstanding came in was she didn't want to kind of talk about Clannad. And I can understand that, because, I mean, she wasn't with us that long, and she didn't want to kind of have that tag. She really wanted to move on and do her own thing. And it was very difficult for her, and she worked very, very hard. And, and achieved such amazing heights, I mean, with what she's done. It's absolutely incredible. as far as my own solo project, it was something I really wanted to do for a long time. But I never got the opportunity, or maybe I just didn't push myself in doing it, because I think I really needed to put myself under pressure to do it. I can be quite lazy like that, because I left most of the writing to my brothers. But I just, when I mentioned it to the record company that maybe I might do a solo album, and it was a time that Clannad were taking a bit of a break. Also, I was expecting my first child, and it was appropriate to kind of sit around and write. I didn't want to make an album to sound like Clannad, because then there was no point in doing an album. I didn't want then to sound, too much like Anya, which was difficult for me because I'm her sister. So it was attacking it in a different way when I included my other three sisters who've never really been in the studio. And it was like, if I had taken 3 session singers, they would have been so perfect kind of thing. But it was just a kind of raw chanting that I had an idea that would really be nice. And I only thought that they sort of, be in maybe 2 or 3 of the songs, but it just worked so well. They ended up on 9 of the 10. And it did create a different kind of sound, yet again from the Brennan clan, which I hope wasn't overpowering for too many people.
Watch the seasons change with every year. Disappearing skies, the earth will fade. Trees are tall and proud, forests so grand. How much longer will they stand? Will they stand?
I ended up writing and finishing the album I was 8.5 months pregnant. Hence the picture of the baby at the front. Although that wasn't supposed to be the picture for the front at all. I was going to put that very small picture at the back because I did write a lullaby for her in Gaelic on the album, which is one of my favourites. And, the record company rang me up a couple of days later and said, we love this picture. Would you mind if she'd be put in the front? And I didn't feel I was exploring her because she's very much part of the album, and she still is. When she listens to it. This is an album that, we're really pleased with because I think it's one of the best Clannad albums. And we really took a long time doing this one, over a year. So when we went in to do this, we had a lot of material, but material that we were quite happy with, that we knew was sort of, we felt it was quite mature. You know, it had that kind of rightness, Clannad rightness, even the kind of folk rockier things. It had come of age, sort of. Banba means, it's an old mythical romantic name for Ireland, and it was once called that, and it goes back to the kings of Ireland. They had three goddesses. There was one called Fola, one called Eru, which is now Éire, and Banba. And Banba Or, which is a track on the album, is the golden age of Ireland, and it reflects on images all around Ireland of kind of from the Golden Age, the Celtic Age to the Stone Age, kind of all these sort of, you know, the headstones and the Celtic crosses and the ring of gold and all this kind of stuff. It's a very visual thing. And I think that's something that Clannad have as well, is that people love listening to our music, and, you know, because of the imagery that people have. They have, you know, so many people can have their own kind of imagination and their own feel to it, and it has a lot of pictures. Three Gaelic songs in it, one of whom is one of the old traditional songs that my grandfather gave us. Cajeshin dan Cheshin dan Munyin Da, which means it's nobody's business but my own. It's a great song, actually. Typical Irish again.
Ma brana mantor o cajeshin dan jeshin nach manin shin da ma holm
I would say if we hadn't been a family, we wouldn't be together now. I certainly would say that, because there has been some hard times as well as, great times with Clannad, when we had to basically live out of each other's pockets, go back to Donegal and just lean on each other's shoulders and wonder what was next. And wondering, will we take it another couple of years or whatever? We have rows like everybody else, but I think that being a family, I think that if you have a problem with somebody or if you're annoyed with somebody, you actually come out with it. You have the row and it's over and done with. Which is, if sometimes you can build up something, if it's just, even if it's a close friend, and it can build up into, a huge problem. So in that way, it's been a huge advantage to being a family, in the sense that you'll eat each other alive, but in half an hour it's all over and you're back playing music again. This is why I'm still music. This is why I'm still playing, because, I love it. Being able to feel so wonderful and, in achieving another album and feeling you're still striving to do something, and you're really feeling that you're really doing something that you really enjoying, and that's what's important. I think that every so often we sit down and we just say, well, we do it for another couple of years, we say okay, and then we'll sit down another couple of years. So I don't know where it's gonna end. Any album that we've made, it's always been, the challenge is going home to Donegal, and just when we're going through the mountain, the last kind of 40 minutes drive, I put the new album on and just sit back. I don't drive. And sit back and look around and soak in the atmosphere, and 9.5 times out of 10 it works, as far as I feel that it has come from there. So You know, there's normally a smile on my face.
Closer to Your Heart, the story of Clannad, was told by Moya Brennan and produced by Mandy Morton for Smooth Operations.